The big picture of the Bible, chapter 5. Sin separates us from God. Sin has dire consequences for God's creation. Sin involves us in 3 deaths that influence our relationship with God and His universe. Death number 1, spiritual death. God is holy. In Habakkuk chapter 1 and verse 13, you are of purer eyes than to behold evil, and cannot look upon wickedness. God is holy. And because God is holy, any sin, regardless of its motivation, magnitude, or consequences, must result in separation from a holy God. In Isaiah 59, verses 1 and 2, we are assured, the Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save. God's ear is not dull that it cannot hear, but our iniquities have made a separation between us and our God. Our sins have hidden His face from us. God is holy. And because God is holy, any sin, regardless of its motivation, magnitude, or consequences, must result in separation from a holy God. Because God is holy, He must turn His face away when we sin. This separation from God, the essence of spiritual life, is so dreadful that it is referred to in the worst possible term: spiritual death. The Apostle Paul, in Ephesians 2 and verse 5, speaks of those who were dead in their trespasses. The message is all over the New Testament. In James chapter 2 and verse 26, James writes of how the body apart from the spirit is dead. Death is a separation. The separation of our bodies from our spirits is death. The separation of our spirits from a holy God is spiritual death. In Romans chapter 6 and verse 23, the wages of sin is death, separation from the holy God who created us. In Colossians 2 and verse 13, you were dead in your trespasses. In 1 Timothy 5 and verse 6, the Apostle Paul speaks of a woman who is self-indulgent, who is dead even while she lives, physically alive, but in the most important sense, spiritually dead. When our spiritual relationship with God is severed as a result of sin, it is as if the spirit inside our fleshly containers has died. Death number 1 is spiritual death, separation from God as a result of our own individual sins. Death number 2 is mortal death, the death of our physical bodies. Spiritual death is not the only result of sin. We all experience consequences of the very first sin of humanity. Before sin, man existed in a perfect state of spiritual fellowship with God. As a result of Adam and Eve's first sin in the Garden of Eden, referred to often as the fall, we will all die a mortal death. In Genesis 3, verse 19, God said, "By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return." God has told us our fleshly containers will not live forever. Mortal death will befall us all, and is a reminder of the seriousness of sin. Again, from Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 7, "The dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it." Other consequences of the first sin were pronounced as well in Genesis 3. Man has to work in difficulty. Women will have pain in childbirth. The earth is no longer a perfect place, but now produces natural desires which affect all of creation. All of this occurred because of the first sin. While spiritual and mortal death are consequences suffered by each individual, nothing has been done that would deal with sin. Nothing has been done to remove sin or restore man's spiritual relationship with God.